on with our discussions today. So we're very lucky to have with us our thought leader in lean accounting, also the person who's going to be doing our lean accounting workshop in June. So we've got a workshop that we're going to be doing, a 2-dayer, the 20th and the 21st. We've got a real nice site location. We're going to be holding it in the Hot House in downtown San Luis Obispo. But we've got Jerry Solomon on the line right now with us, and written a few books that everybody should read on lean accounting. And I just want to welcome Jerry. Jerry, hello.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and in name of full lean transparency, I talked Jerry into doing this, and he said, well, what kind of questions are you going to ask? And so I gave him a list of a few that I was going to start him with, but I also want to make this an open conversation. So if somebody wants to ask Jerry a question or sort of interrupt, I think Jerry and I would both really sort of appreciate that, because I think an interactive session is much better. One way you can do that is you can raise your hand. I forget how you can raise your hand, but there's probably some button there at the bottom of the screen, or if you just want to yell out, we'll go ahead and get your question in there, all right? So Jerry, with that, let me go ahead and get started. Like I said, welcome once again. Thank you for taking the time. You're down in Florida right now, so it's nice that we've got this sort of cross-country collaboration going.
It's wonderful technology. It's like we're right next door.
Yeah, exactly. So Jerry, tell us a little bit about your lean journey. I think everybody's got a lean journey. How'd you get into this lean stuff? What kind of things have you done, and how'd you get to where you are right now?
Okay. Yeah, and everyone always asks that question. And when I look back, my epiphany on lean, and in particular lean accounting, came very early in my career in 1986. And I had been CFO for a middle market company when we got a new president on board. And after about 9 months on board, he was not happy with what was going on in the manufacturing side of the business. And he called me in his office and asked if I would like to be vice president of manufacturing. And when you get asked like that, it's not like you really have a choice, yes or no. And so I went from really being, when you think about it, a supplier of a product, and that product was financial information, to being the customer of that product. And so other than having my knowledge of finance, having a big set of keys now to all the manufacturing operations and a nice different office, my question is, what am I going to bring to these people? I had to bring out what they already had inside them, but they just didn't have the ability to use it, because when you think about it, we share financial information with people at our respective organizations, and 95% don't have a clue what they mean. And so my mode of operation was to go down there and teach them the business side and the accounting side of things while they taught me manufacturing. Together we could become a team and do some great things. And I like to tell a little story about it, two stories. Number one was, when I first got there, I tried to see how much of the information the accounting and finance area had been providing, how useful it was. And sadly, I was getting the impression that it wasn't very useful. So to test it out, one morning I came in early, and back in the mid-'80s, believe it or not, we didn't have PCs on everybody's desk. We didn't walk around with laptops. But we had a big mainframe that churned things out, and typically would take these big green bar reports and they put them in the pigeonholes outside of the IT office. And every Monday morning, things would run off, the ERP would run all weekend, and people would get their reports. So I came in early and opened all the reports that were going to manufacturing, and took each report and randomly opened them to somewhere in the middle and wrote with magic marker. You probably heard this story, Eric.
No.
No? Yeah.
No,
I said, oh, you haven't?
No.
And I said, please call me immediately when you get to this page. And then I anxiously awaited all Monday for those telephone calls. And I think you could fully guess how many phone calls I got. I didn't get any.
Yeah.
And so I did the next step, and I said, what's the customer value proposition of this information? And it was pretty revealing to sit down with people and realize how much work, how much sweat we were putting in to generate reports that people were not using and they didn't fully understand. So, you know, when you walk in someone else's shoes, you really get a different flavor for how valuable the product is and their perception of it. So from that day forward, you know, I said, I've got to change the accounting. Now, no one knew the term lean back then. No one knew what lean accounting was, but I said I had to do something different. So that's one piece of the story, and that's it. I had to change the financials. The other piece of the story was I said I have to work with everyone because I'm not a manufacturing guy. And to kind of shorten the story a little bit, let's just say we had my predecessor and the president wanted to know what electricity costed our company. We were spending a lot. We had just put in a state-of-the-art foundry in rural Vermont where electricity was very expensive. And it was costing us over 7 figures back in $86. And they hired a cost accountant and they had put it in to try to absorb at the SKU level how much energy we're using. And when you're a seasonal business, that's all you do is wild swings from big favorable to unfavorable variances. No one understood anything. And so I got people together and I asked them if they understood anything about our electric bill, because I wasn't interested in looking at it at the micro level, but at the macro level. So they didn't understand it. They had no use for the cost system as it pertained to electricity usage. So we agreed to call in the power company, and they put meters on all the equipment. And we found out we had 4 pieces of equipment in a foundry that drove most of it. Now, in electricity, you pay for 2 main things: what's called usage, how much kilowatts you do, just like at your home, and demand charge. Demand charge determines how big they build the highway or how big they build the power plant. When you think about a highway, how many lanes do you need at rush hour to keep everything moving? And the demand charge is that power demand you put on at the peak period on any given day, whether it's a 10 or 15-minute period. And what you do, that spike, you pay 80% of it for the next 9 months, even if you were to shut down operations. So we said, that's interesting. Let's bring in the power company to show this to everyone. Let's explain what machinery it's on. And we just did that with the people in the foundry. And I didn't have to say anything. They saw what time of day it was. It was at the start of the shift. They saw what equipment. And on their own, they decided to change when they started up the shift, the 4 people that had these big pieces of equipment. And they came in, they bought 4 light bulbs, and they put it, one guy came in 40 minutes before the shift. For the 10-minute startup, the light bulb would be red, then he'd turn it off. That was the signals to the next guy to spend 10 minutes starting his machine. It would be red, no one else start up anything, he'd turn it on. The 3rd person and the 4th person. And just by doing that and spreading out the demand load, they saved $250,000. And it showed me the power of educating people in understanding the game of business, putting it in information in a format that's easily understandable, and then just get out of their way.
Yeah.
So when I got into lean and saw Kaizens and how to even bring out more in people, that was just a perfect match for what I wanted to do from the finance side and the accounting side. So that's my long, short introduction.
Okay. Yes, that's a great story. So can you get so we're setting up to try to get other people into that mode, into that kind of environment where they can actually sort of make change happen and give people the right numbers. We got this 2-day workshop that we're setting up to do in June, on June 20th and 21st. You're going to be the leader for that workshop. Could you give us a little, thumbnail? You've done this workshop before for other people. What does it look like? What can people expect?
I've been doing this workshop for well over a decade. I've done it all around the country. I've done it for other people and out of the country. And what we go through in the 2 days is, first of all, we explain the difference between lean accounting and accounting for lean. They're 2 different things. Lean accounting is applying the lean tools to improve the accounting department. No different than applying the lean tools in manufacturing or in sales or in product development. Accounting for lean, on the other hand, is changing your company's scorecard. We call that plain English P&Ls, and we show you how to do that. We show you how to develop different metrics that are meaningful. Okay. In the introductions, Thomas said something that was dead on. He said, lean and traditional accounting don't work well together. So we addressed that during the 2 days, and we show that through a simulation. One of the unique things about this workshop is there's a 3-stage simulation where we have a little factory where we assemble things, and we do financial states. First, we're operating in a traditional push mode, then we go to a pull mode, and then we go to one-piece flow, and we show how the financial statements really are impacted negatively, all else being equal, by implementing lean. And people don't realize that initially might have some bad news financially in traditional P&Ls that you cannot see, and we want to make them visible to everyone. So you can report what's happening and explain what lean is doing to financial performance of the company. Okay, so we go through all of that. We go through a couple of case studies. We go through lean budgeting. We go through what we've done in a Kaizen for lean accounts payable. We also go through what an organizational structure should look like in a lean organization, and we go through what really a good lean culture is. Of course, we'd be remiss spending 2 days with you and just talking about lean tools if we didn't talk about lean culture. Of course, God knows how many companies are practicing lean for the last 30 years, and they're wondering why they're not successful or as successful as they'd like to be. And that's because they've ignored the culture side of it. So we talk about culture as well. So those are the things we go through. Let's see, what else? We also touch upon, I noticed there was someone from HR, I believe. We touch about lean in HR. We show you how the lean tools could be applied in the office, in particular HR, so that they apply everywhere. So those are the basic things. We do value stream costing, box scores, lean metrics, etc. But the main goal of the company is to get alignment between the accounting folks and the operations folks, so that they're going down what is a very, very challenging journey. They're going down in lockstep, and that's what we want to do. So anybody that's thinking of coming to the workshop, I encourage them to bring their peers.
Jerry, so one thing I know is going to come up, and people sort of always ask that, because lean is well beyond manufacturing now, and especially sort of here in the Central Coast, we've got people in education and government and hospitals and things. Are they going to be turned off by your workshop? Are they going to be able to see the equivalents? Are they going to be able to sort of figure out the translations? How do you handle that if they want to come to this workshop?
Great question. And I think that applies for all of lean. When you learn a tool, what's the really challenging part and the creative part and the fun part is, how do I apply that tool to my company or my department or my area, and really do what you need to do to mold that tool to your particular environment. And that's why in the workshop, when I do lean HR, I show how you could do pull in HR, Kanbans in HR, visual boards in HR, tack time in HR, and all those things, because the only thing that limits us is what's between our ears, and getting creative on how we apply the tools that is not just for manufacturing. The one area that will be different if you're not in the manufacturing environment is the whole notion of cost management and the treatment of inventory. Of course, those other companies will not have the inventory issue that is a big issue for manufacturing companies.
Right.
All the rest, whether organizational structure, plain English P&Ls, HR, culture, all of those things will apply just as well to any company.
Okay, good, excellent. So what are sort of the top 2 or 3 reasons why somebody would want to, attend the workshop? So you present sort of what the information is, like what's the big get, or what's the big opportunity here for people attending this workshop with regards?
Well, one of those answers might be, someone in the introduction said, I think it was Chester, they want to get, what information should they capture up front so they could prove that lean is beneficial to the company? And if you're just going to continue to use the traditional metrics, you're going to have a hard time doing that. And one of the things lean practitioners don't understand And I wouldn't expect them to understand it, but I'm surprised most accountants don't understand it, that the better you get at lean, probably I'm sure all else being equal, your financials are going to get worse. And if you're in operations or anywhere in a company and can't explain that and can't predict that in advance, so you're not surprising the financial people or the site leader or the general manager, they're going to say, I don't know what you're doing out there. I know you're high-fiving each other. I know you think you're doing great stuff. But could someone tell me why my P&L got worse last month or last quarter? Mm-hmm. And everyone's going to be like a deer in headlights if they can't answer that question. And we make sure you could answer that question. So that's a big thing that's there. The other thing, as I said, is to realize 95% of the people at your company do not understand the financials. And that's the scorekeeping system of the business. And I liken it to sports. If you're a quarterback in a football team, can you call the right play if you don't know the down and distance, if you don't know the score, if you don't know what period you're in, if you don't know what yard line you're on? How do we expect people in their work area to make good decisions on a day-to-day basis if they don't know the definition of winning and how to look at the scorecard to see what it takes to win? So we want to equip people to do that as well. Yeah, those are the things we hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And so, Jerry, like, one thing what do you think so I've kind of got this where one of the reasons I keep on pushing this lean accounting stuff is because of some of the things I see at Cal Poly, and there's the power of these financial people and organizations to make calls that from an operations standpoint, I just sort of scratch my head and whatnot. But what do you think is the biggest challenge in trying to get people to buy into lean accounting or getting organizations to go in this direction?
I think there are a number of reasons, but I think the biggest reason was when lean first came out in the seminal book on lean, every time you saw the word lean, it said lean manufacturing. And so we said, oh, this is another one of those manufacturing programs. We had the quality program. We had program after program. So this is lean manufacturing, which basically said the rest of the company can ignore lean because it's lean manufacturing. Yeah. Huge mistake that we're still trying to get over. Lean is a company strategy of operational excellence. And I don't think the people in accounting or IT or product development truly understand that. So that's one hurdle. When we talk about lean or lean accounting, people think if we buy a new software program or we get an MRP system or IT involved, we could solve it, we can make it more efficient. Not realizing that you have to tap into the human being. Huge. There's other barriers in particular to accounting. And those barriers are, the first thing the accountants are going to say is, the auditors won't let us. Or lean accounting is not in conformance with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. Believe me, Toyota has a Big Four accounting firm. They perform towards GAAP. My prior company had Ernst & Young. We had performed according to GAAP. So they're very good as smoke screens, okay? So you come down to the biggest issue is change, and people don't like change. And when you think about change in accounting, they've been doing accounting the same way for 100 years. Right. We've never asked them to have these kind of changes. So there's all that resistance that you have to overcome. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. One of the things I always, when I'm talking to my class about lean, we're a college of business, so there's certainly accounting students sort of in the audience, and it's great that we've got an accounting, somebody looking at the numbers, but where are the people looking at the time? Where's the time? I got a BS in time or a bachelor's of science in time versus a bachelor's of science in the accounting side. It's just not there, and it ought to be.
Well, part of the challenge too, Eric, as you probably are well aware, for the most part, they don't teach lean. In particular, they don't teach lean accounting in the undergraduate curriculum.
Right.
You're lucky if you have a tenured professor that has the freedom to teach it in the graduate course, and the graduate students will say, well, why couldn't I learn that earlier? Because you're telling me what I was taught here, really, this is a better way. And it's 21st century accounting.
Right.
So we really have to start also in the education side of things.
Yeah. No, I'd like to see that happen.